All right, we go back to our questions. This is for Cora Henderson over in Pitt and Frank. Bobby says, before buying a home, he asked about night trains on tracks near the house. He was going to buy the house. Bobby says his agent said he couldn't find anything to get the information about whether there are trains on the tracks that are nearby. He said he tried. Sure enough, there are trains going by at night, Bobby says, but thankfully not that often. So Bobby is wondering, Cora and Brad, is there any way to get a train schedule? Should his agent have been able to get that information? Let's start with you, Cora, and I did some research on this question as well. Go ahead.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to your input on that. That certainly hasn't come up. And, I think maybe in other cities, I could see how that could be an issue. Or maybe even, in the Bardstown area where you have those tracks there. If anybody's ever done the dinner train, it's quite lovely there through Bardstown. But, you definitely back up to a lot of residential homes there whenever you're going along the train tracks. So, I don't know about a resource and check-in train times and that kind of, item, which I think Bob can opine on. But, for me, I would go to the seller. I mean, they're the ones that have lived there. Whether it was investment property, there had to be a tenant. Somebody has boots on the ground experience that to me would be probably more worthwhile than a schedule I Googled. And so I'd really like to know the frequency and the sounds and what it's like. Also, I always encourage people, if they want to know when they're buying a property, what it's like to live there, visit the property. It certainly doesn't mean that you have to, don't want you to trespass or enter the property without an appointment, but you can drive by, get a good sense, different times of the day. Can you picture yourself going home for lunch? Or what is it like in your evening commute? Or, what is it like if you want to go for a walk, before bedtime or whatever that looks like? If you're going to be living there, drive by the area. There's nothing wrong with that. And in doing that, you may be able to see or not see, any trains kind of going by. Of course, if you don't go by at 3:00 in the morning, you may not hit that type of schedule, but I think it could give you a good sense. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and I think you combine a couple of things you said. First, find out from the seller through your agent if there are trains at night, and if so, what approximate time. And then you might just want to set your alarm, get up and go over there and just sit in the area and just see what it sounds like.
Sure, yeah.
And I would also suggest you do that anyway, in terms of just going over there, and if you're going to buy a house, see what the area is like for traffic reasons, for pedestrian, and of course not during a snowstorm or when we have ice out there, but just see what type of the community it is when you would be living there. And then finally, I did the research, and it is very difficult to find train schedules. I found the companies that do in fact run on the tracks, but they don't necessarily publish a schedule. And I wonder if that's intentional, so that you can't track them, or if it's delays, they can't be held to a standard of when the train's coming through. But as I saw, it was very difficult to find any sort of a semblance of a train schedule. So I think your agent, Bobby, in this case, did his due diligence as much as he possibly could.
And also, Bobby, I think, just being aware that, there is a doctrine out there called coming to the nuisance. And so I think you'd be hard pressed to make an argument, I don't know the legs to it, if you complained after you bought it that, oh, this is too loud, or I can't deal with this is a nuisance, and you try to get a lawsuit, together in that regard because you knew it was there. So that's your opportunity to do the due diligence, whether, there's an airport in your backyard, whether there's, you abut a slaughterhouse and you're worried about the noxious odors or smells, or, in this instance, you have the railroad track. There could be a number of different types of definable nuisances, and you want to make sure your due diligence is done so that would be acceptable for you before you buy the home.
Brad, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, Bob, is periodically people ask us about windows and insulation, sound deadening. Mm-hmm. And what I find interesting is that they'll often say to us, well, we asked the seller about noise, whether it's highway noise, whether it's train noise, and they're like, yeah, we don't hear anything. I think sometimes people get accustomed to the sound around them, where they become kind of noise blind, if you will, where they don't even hear it, just because it just is part of the natural ebb and flow of the day. Yeah. So
yeah,
sure.
And it's actually comforting. In some cases, people tell me who they live, they back up to a highway, they don't even notice the highway. Now, I'd have a tough time buying into that, but they say we don't even notice it. Mm-hmm. All right, Bobby, hopefully that helps you.